High above the Precardian homeworld of Demit, a spacecraft spiraled through the pale dawn sky, plummeting towards the dense forest below. Vol was tending to his garden when he heard the crash off in the distance. A thick plume of smoke billowed from out of the forest canopy, which the man followed to where the vessel had come down. There he found a terrified human child, no more than 2 years old, all alone amidst the raised trees and scorched earth. No other passengers were in sight. "Don't be scared now," Vol said. Desperate, he looked around for someone, anyone, but the surroundings were empty save for a few startled forest creatures who burrowed under fallen leaves or scampered up trees. "Where are your parents?" The little boy did not respond. He just stared straight ahead with unblinking eyes, gripping in one hand a singed and torn blanket that hung limply by his side. Vol gently patted the scared child on his head as he stepped past him to look inside the wrecked vessel, but it too was empty. "Don't you worry, little one. Everything's gonna be okay." Vol carried the boy out of the forest and back to his home, where he and his wife agreed to look after him until whomever he had been with on that ship could be located. After weeks had passed with no sign of them, Vol came to the sobering realization that they might never be found. The Precardian couple decided to raise the human child as their own. The boy had no form of identification and was unwilling, or perhaps too young, to speak, so they had no choice but to choose a name for him. As a way to honor his human ancestry and the parents he lost, they named him Kentucky, Kent for short. From that day forward, Kent was brought up in the loving household of Vol and Fran. But life as a human on Demit proved difficult. Humans were one of 3 species that constituted the Orion Tricorp, a rebel faction that broke off from the United Galactic Coalition many years ago. Prejudice and intolerance towards the Tricorp were widespread throughout Demit. This prejudice often extended even to those without any direct affiliation with Tricorp, as Precardians were quick to associate all humans, Larazis, and Borargans with the divisive faction. Having been raised by his adoptive Precardian parents on a Precardian world, Kent's outward appearance was his only human attribute. Unfortunately for Kent, that was reason enough for those who would discriminate against his kind. When Kent was a child, Fran and Vol did all they could to protect him from the prejudice pervading Demit. They kept Kent's existence a secret from most. Kent once asked his parents why they never took him anywhere. He may have been too young at the time to fully understand the reasons, but he never forgot one thing his father said to him. "We're not ashamed of you, Kentucky. Don't ever think that. It's Demit we're ashamed of." The majority of the couple's friends never realized they had a child at all. Kent learned early on that it was better to keep to himself. Compared to a typical Precardian boy, Kent's childhood was rather lonely, but he was not entirely without friends. Demit was his pet lizard, whom he found while out exploring around the far side of the hills surrounding his home. Early signs of Kent developing a passion for food were first revealed while he was caring for Demit. Even for his pet lizard, he would concoct special dishes of insects, fruits, vegetables, and greens. He would gather the ingredients himself daily, bring them home, and experiment with different combinations and proportions. Based on how satisfied Demit appeared after each meal, Kent would make thoughtful, subtle adjustments to his recipe, improving the dish little by little. Kent also had a favorite action figure, a blue robot he named Goldobot. Kent's father had bought it for him for his 5th birthday during a business trip to Kyudea, Demit's 2nd largest city. For much of his childhood, Goldobot accompanied Kent almost everywhere he went, and for many years the pair were inseparable. Despite his isolation, Kent did make one Precardian friend, his neighbor Fina, a mute girl about the same age as him. Fina, too, felt like an outcast and kept herself hidden from society. When Kent first met her, he was so overjoyed to have finally found a friend to play with who was not an animal or a robot that he did not even notice she was mute until several days later. As Kent grew, so did his love of food. Both of his parents were chefs who owned and operated a small restaurant called Shao 3, meaning clay jar, in the small town of Mauvelin, and their passion for cooking rubbed off on Kent. Early on, they allowed Kent to assist in the restaurant's kitchen, so long as he was not seen by the clientele. They even paid him a modest wage, which he was able to put into savings. They were always trying to balance protecting him from danger with allowing him opportunities to grow and experience new things. Kent fell in love with cooking. By the age of 12, he had mastered most of the local Precardian dishes, even beginning to improvise recipes of his own. Kent's parents were proud of their son and enjoyed seeing his talents grow. They decided to introduce Kent to a variety of cuisines from neighboring worlds. They began buying foreign cookbooks for him and amassed quite a large collection. Kent would read through them at every opportunity, relishing all the new culinary knowledge he was being exposed to. Every night, he would challenge himself by preparing a new dish. He followed the recipes closely, but realized many of the ingredients they called for were not accessible to him on Demit. Kent sought out techniques for concocting substitutes, using local ingredients for the more exotic components in the recipes. When Kent felt he had perfected a dish, he would serve his creation to his parents. They were always so impressed that they added many of Kent's creations to the restaurant's menu. Before long, their little family restaurant became known for having the widest variety of foreign cuisine in the area, and business flourished. Those were some of the happiest times that Kent could remember spending with his mother and father. But it was not to last. His father passed away suddenly from an aggressive Precardian disease they did not discover until it was too late. It was a tragedy that would change everything for their family. For months afterward, Kent painfully watched as his mother became overwhelmed with grief. Most mornings she would not leave her bed, and Kent would have to drag her out. Evenings at the dinner table were silent and devoid of any happiness. At night, Kent would hear his mother's cries coming from her bedroom, and he would go in and comfort her until she fell asleep. These hardships did not let up when she left the house. At the restaurant, she struggled to service their usual high volume of customers. Food orders piled up, dirty dishes were left on tables, and impatient customers were kept waiting to be seated. Kent decided something needed to be done. He sat down with his mother and suggested hiring someone who could help manage the restaurant, but she objected. The chances of whomever they hired starting trouble when they found out about Kent was too high. But Kent was going to help his mother one way or another. He knew that he could not do that being stuck in the back of the kitchen. He decided he could no longer remain hidden. Defying his mother's wishes, in the middle of a workday, he mustered up the courage to walk out of the kitchen to clear some tables. He soon realized what a severe mistake he had made. Looking around the room, he saw a sea of shocked faces, his mother's included. "Kentucky," his stunned mother began before her voice caught in her throat. I can get that for you," Kent offered as he reached out to grab the empty plates off the table of a well-to-do-looking family seated nearby. But before Kent could grab the dishes, the father swatted his hand with an open, sweaty palm. Kent recoiled and frowned as the man took a cloth from his pocket and began cleaning the hand that touched Kent's. The people of Mauvelin were not ready to accept a human into their community, let alone allow him to handle their meals. Several customers immediately stood up from their seats and left without paying. Some became openly angry and confronted Kent's mother, yelling at her, demanding refunds for past meals. A few sat quietly with their heads down, finishing their meals in stunned silence. Kent realized that, in their eyes, human equaled Tricorp. This widely held belief inhibited Kent for most of his life. The weeks and months that followed saw Kent's situation worsen. Not only could he no longer work at the restaurant, his mere presence there made him fear for his mother's safety. Backlash against the restaurant employing a human was swift and harsh, even if the human was the owner's child, a fact lost on many. Kent made a painful choice. He would leave Mauvelin. His mother, though it broke her heart to see him go, supported her son's decision. She understood that it would be a long time before Precardian views toward humans changed. She warned Kent to remain cautious, as there were many places all across Demit and throughout the universe that held the same views. She wanted Kent to experience more than Mauvelin could offer, and she believed he was destined for greater things. With Kent leaving home, he was able to convince his mother to bring in someone who could help her run the restaurant. She decided to call on her sister, Flo. Kent's only aunt was one of the few people to whom Kent's parents revealed their secret, but she never accepted Kent as a member of the family, nor approved of her sister's decision to keep a human child. While Kent did not get along with his aunt, he was happy knowing his mother would not be alone. Kent spent several of his early teenage years traveling across Demit, living off of his savings, disguising his appearance to make identifying him as a human difficult. It was a lonely way of life, but he found comfort in food, sampling the local flavors of every city he visited. Those were formative years for him, and his passion for the culinary arts only strengthened. As much as he loved Demit's foods and flavors, he began to dream of one day traveling to other planets, other star systems, tasting and learning about the cuisines of all the countless worlds in the known universe.